It's always this that comes up time and time again, and people think it's acceptable to do this. Mortgage fraud is rampant within Canada's housing bubble, as we know on this channel, and we've discussed before. But today we're going to dig more into this and find out exactly what's going on as the story continues to evolve. So this is in Saskatchewan, but don't just think about Saskatchewan, because this is happening everywhere. It's just a lot of these people aren't getting caught like they have done in Saskatchewan. So anyway, let's see what's going on here. So Affinity, BMO, and CIBC hit an alleged Saskatoon mortgage fraud. Okay. Saskatoon police have said about 5 million in mortgages were issued in relation to this case. Affinity Credit Union and CIBC declined to comment while the matter is before the courts. Bank of Montreal has not responded for comment either. In a media release, police said investigators traced the documents to mortgages submitted by 2 realtors. Two realtors. Again, we come back to this moral hazard of the real estate industry, where essentially they don't have any risk with doing stuff like this, with creating these fraudulent documents, so they go ahead and do it. And I think it is such a big problem. And the fact that they're paid such large amounts of money, they're overpaid in my opinion, means that you get stuff like this happen because they're chasing after the almighty dollar. So police said they searched 3 locations and seized more fraudulent documents connected to mortgage applications at other financial institutions. In an email, police said all charges involved mortgages for different people, but in a couple of instances, the same mortgage application was used for more than one financial institution. Police said investigators found 17 successful and attempted mortgage applications. But think about this. This is going on everywhere. And I think this is a big problem, especially in places like Toronto, places like Vancouver, where you've got a large percentage of immigrants as part of the population there. And they are ripe for being took advantage of by mortgage brokers and realtors to falsify fraudulent documents, because essentially they wouldn't be able to get a mortgage otherwise, would they? If they've just moved to Canada, if they've got no credit. Yeah, as we've discussed in prior videos, that does happen. And I'm going to link a playlist at the end of this. So if you haven't seen all the videos that I've done on mortgage fraud and the banking system, you can check them out, because they're vitally important to understand the wider picture of what's going on here. So let's move on to this, which is just mind-boggling. It really is. So let's get into this. I mean, you gotta laugh because this is just so ridiculous. Nearly half of Canadians think mortgage fraud is common. Some are willing to do it, says this survey. Nearly half of Canadians said they think mortgage fraud is common in Canada, while a sizable portion think it's acceptable to inflate income or misrepresent your employment to secure a mortgage. Those were findings of the latest B&M Bloomberg Rates.ca survey conducted by Ledger. The survey was sent out to respondents in mid-February and surveyed 1,521 Canadians over the age of 18. So, it's a big enough sample size that it gives you some sort of idea what's going on here. The survey found that while 70% of Canadians say artificially inflating one's income is not acceptable on a mortgage application, 17% of respondents said it is acceptable. They said it is acceptable to lie on your mortgage application. Now, isn't that worrying? 2 in 10 people are saying that it is acceptable, in fact, to lie on your mortgage application. Just think about how profound that is, because just think about how many people have lied and done this. And that is why they're probably saying, yeah, it's okay, because we've done it as well. I think this is extremely common, because when you have housing prices run this far away from income, and we know, guys, we know that gap is not due to large amount of wealth being built up. We know that gap is due to mortgage debt that's being built up, because we've been through it. So when that happens, there has to be fraud that's going on. And then when the prices rise, that fraud just gets more and more ingrained into the process and becomes more and more common. Even more Canadians, 18%, said it was acceptable to misrepresent elements of one's employment in order to secure a mortgage. So not just lie about your income, also lie about your employment and say, I actually stack shelves at Walmart, but I'm going to say I'm their general manager at Walmart instead. You know, this is stuff that people are doing, and you have to realize this is easy stuff for people to do. I mean, all it takes is you to buy a subscription for Adobe Acrobat DC. There are probably YouTube videos on how to do it as well. And failing that, they're just going to pay somebody to forge these documents and do it that way instead. So, and that is happening. We've covered it in prior episodes. So it is absolutely mad, this, I think. 47% said they feel mortgage fraud is common. And why would they? Why would they say that they feel it's common? It's because you've had housing prices just go parabolic. This is to 2022 from Q1 2013. And it just goes to show you housing prices, yeah, they flattened out for a few years, but they've near enough gone straight up. And this is adjusted for inflation. Nominal prices, they've gone even higher than this. Okay, so just goes to show you how crazy this has gotten. It's led people to drive them to make and do stupid things like mortgage fraud. 12% said they think it's very common. Only 5% said they think it's very uncommon. That just again shows you how bad. The issue with mortgage fraud in Canada has been a growing problem in recent years. Equifax said that it has seen a 52% increase in mortgage fraud cases since 2013. This is from 2013. That's why I got this chart up. And you can see this is why we've seen. And where do you think the mortgage fraud was happening the most during these rises, during these emotional rises where people are driven by their emotions and they're just led to do stupid things essentially, and really illegal things, because that's what it is. And the fact is, the banks, they don't really care. If there's no red flags on that application, they're not going to fact check it, and they just let it slide. And this has been one of the other problems, because on the back end in the banks, I know because a few of you who subscribe to this channel work at the banks, and we talked about this stuff, and you've left comments on this. People like Alessandro, people like Obliterated have left comments on this. You worked in banks previously, or you work in a bank, just saying how bad this is, how people on the back end are just essentially bonused on this sort of stuff. So they want to pass as many mortgage applications through to get their bonuses. You know, of course they're checking some, but it's just the minimum amount that they have to. They want to get as many through as possible. So this is another thing that's rising, mortgage fraud in Canada, how it's evolving. So this was just put out the other day. Fraudulent actors have long been a feature of Canada's mortgage landscape. Doesn't that show you how the housing market is just built on such a solid foundation? It's built on mortgage fraud. I mean, come on, God. Oh man, you have to laugh about this because it's just so ridiculous in some ways. But the types of crime being attempted have evolved in recent years, according to the president of a title insurance giant. FCT told a recent panel discussion hosted by a company that forms of fraud on the rise included efforts by individuals to place a mortgage on a property they didn't own before absconding with the funds, while title fraud, theft of a property from an unsuspecting homeowner, has also seen an uptick in cases. So I mean, again, just different types of fraud are evolving as criminals see that the banks are just lending money. Like they don't check. So it's a perfect environment if you are a criminal to come and take advantage of that. This is why this thing is evolving. It wouldn't be evolving, would it, if the banks were actually clamping down on this sort of stuff? But they're not. You have to realize this. They love the subprime loans. They love the subprime clientele that is coming in. Even if they don't know about it, they are loving it. And that's because it's lining their pockets with bonus money all the way up to the CEO of the bank. So it's unfortunate, but it's the way the system is structured. Lots of moral hazard in there. I want to bring you back to this, which we brought up in another video. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because this is one of the most common fraud that happens in the mortgage market. And again, the person who's liable to pay for this, in part at least, is going to be the taxpayer. So let's explain what's going on. So mortgage broker asking me to lie. Again, it's the mortgage broker. or it's the real estate agent. They've got the connections to make it happen always, right? Hi, I was talking with my broker to secure a variable rate for my rental unit's mortgage renewal. They got me a pretty good rate, but then their heart fell when I told them it's not my principal residence. However, they said that I can just lie about where I was living to secure that rate and it should be fine. And why is the rate lower for somebody when it's their principal residence? It's because of the risk involved. It's because of the probabilities of that person defaulting are less than somebody with a rental property. But you know, these things have been so common, so widespread when I've done research into the matter of mortgage fraud. It's always this that comes up time and time again, and people think it's acceptable to do this, which is they either lie to get a lower down payment on an investment property by saying it's their principal residence, because then they don't have to put 20% down, they can put 5% down. Why is that? Why can they do that? It's because the taxpayer is insuring that mortgage. The lender wouldn't want to take that risk if the taxpayer wasn't insuring that mortgage through the CMHC. So that's one way that they do it. And then another way is like this. They're lying to get lower rates because the risk premium is higher for an investment property. So then they go ahead and say, no, it's my principal residence, and then they get that lower rate. And it could possibly be an insured mortgage on the back end, because a lot of even these uninsured mortgages that are uninsured to the borrower, the bank will literally then go to CMHC and get them insured for an extra premium. They'll pay it because they know the garbage that they've essentially got there. So let's insure our risk here. But the reality is, at the end of the day, when the fraud is uncovered and comes out of this, the taxpayer isn't going to pay for all these losses. It's going to be unable to. So the banks are going to have to eat a lot of these losses. And once the CMHC comes out and questions the validity of the mortgage insurance because of fraud, it's the end. It's the end of the CMHC insured mortgage, which could happen. And I'd be happy to see that day, because I think it is complete garbage. So that is rampant. And again, why is it rampant? And it's because of this. It's because of the parabolic move in housing prices. And you know, if there wasn't a massive move in housing prices, would you have seen the same amount of fraud? The answer is no. The reason the fraud has happened is because people will always do what it takes to buy a home, no matter what that is, even whether it's lying on their mortgage application, committing a crime, essentially, a victimless crime. That's what they would say it is. Then, which you're probably noticing about this chart as well, is if you look on this chart, the biggest decline in real residential property prices for Canada on record. Look at that. The end of the super bubble, it looks like, anyway, unless they come out with some other massive stimulus program to devalue the currency and essentially artificially inflate people's incomes for a short period of time. If you've enjoyed this video, you might like this playlist here, which is all the videos I've done on fraud and the banking system. You might also like that video there that the YouTube algorithm recommends. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.